At DSW, we ask the important questions, like, what shoes are you going to wear? Whether you're prepping for wedding season, festival season, or just planning the ultimate vacay, the right shoes can make or break an RSVP. So own the moment. You've got big plans, and we've got just the shoes. At the perfect price, of course. Get ready to get ready with Designer Shoe Warehouse. Head to your DSW store or dsw.com today and let us surprise you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fresh Take from What Fresh Hell Laughing in the Face of Motherhood. This is Margaret.
And this is Amy, and today we're talking to Dr. Pooja Lakshmin. She's a psychiatrist and author specializing in women's mental health. She's a frequent contributor to the New York Times and the founder of Gemma, the first digital education platform dedicated exclusively to women's mental health. Dr. Lakshmin is passionate about empowering women and sees her clinical work as a perinatal psychiatrist as an extension of this mission. We're going to be talking about mom guilt today, stress, self-care, the anxiety of this pandemic moment, and how we can reclaim ourselves amidst it all. Welcome, Pooja.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
So your practice treats women who are suffering from burnout, disconnection, disillusionment. Is that 100% of women right now?
I mean, it's 100% of the hosts of this podcast.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty close to 100% of women in general, too, I would say. But certainly, there was no shortage of these conditions, even pre-pandemic, for sure. But over the past year and a half, things have reached sort of a fever pitch, and the solutions have gotten much less clear as well over the past year and a half because there's just no give from any side. So it's definitely been tough.
Let's start at a really granular level. So I feel like mom burnout is something that we hear that term. What does that refer to? How does that manifest itself?
Yeah, this is a really interesting topic for me. I actually wrote a piece for the Times back in February for their Primal Scream package, and it was called...
Fantastic article. Yeah, we'll link to it in the show notes.
If you haven't read that Primal Scream article and listened to the voicemails, go take a minute and check that out.
Yes, I loved seeing that. And the piece was called This is Betrayal, Not Burnout. Because the thing with burnout, burnout has kind of a triad of symptoms. It's this disconnection from meaning. So, you're going through all the motions, but it all feels pointless. There's this lack of ability to kind of regulate your own emotions and to really feel like you have control over what's going on in your mind and in your brain. But the thing with burnout is that it puts the onus of responsibility back on the person who's feeling the burnout. And that's my problem with burnout as kind of a box to put people in. Because then it's just like, well, why are you burnt out? You should learn how to meditate. You should be going to yoga. You should be doing self-care. And of course, none of my patients have time for any of that stuff. And so in that article, I talked about how, no, this isn't burnout. This is betrayal. This is, these are structures that are much larger than us. These are people in power who've made the decisions that they have that then put families, moms mostly, in these awful positions where you have to make choices that don't feel good. And that's why I think kind of that frame of turning it back on our systems is so important.
Yeah, and understanding that might not be a breathing exercise away from fixing.
Right. And I think it's really condescending to say to people like, well, just do some mindfulness, as if that's easy to do, right?
But you make a point, we've talked on the show before about sort of the meta emotional states you can get in. I think particularly as moms, that you have this feeling, your burnout, your disillusionment, whatever it is, and then the guilt about that gets layered on, the feeling about the feeling, and it removes us even further from doing something about it.
Totally. And I would say kind of in the past 5 years or so, I've seen that so much more in my clinical practice, that guilt and shame because of the burnout. I think that's a relatively new phenomenon over the past couple years where women are coming in and they're saying, I have no time for myself. I'm exhausted. I'm burnt out. I'm depressed. I'm stressed all the time. I'm anxious. And then I feel like it's my fault because I haven't taken the time. I don't have the time to figure out how to take care of myself. And that added layer is, I think, new. And that's what's so painful, I think, for women. And like so much of my work clinically and writing and in the social media space is like helping women to remember this is not your fault. Like we are all feeling this. And the reason, and if we're all feeling this, this is not your fault.
I was talking to a friend yesterday about, she lost her husband at a very young age and was raising 4 children by herself. And she was saying, I just feel so bad. I just feel like my kids are going to remember me always yelling and being anxious. And I said, yeah, I've been having a difficult time with the situation myself. And I said, I just feel like I'm yelling all the time. And it's like we put ourselves and our flaws at the center of the definition. And I was saying, I think that your girls are going to look back and be like, I can't believe my mom went through this thing and survived, and that the yelling was a symptom of a real problem. But we kind of skip the problem and we go right to like, if only I could get more self-care, these problems, we skip the problem.
Right. Well, and I think part of that is because the problems don't have easy solutions. Right. And the problems in our culture are like the answers to those problems are so contradictory. There's not an easy solution based on who you follow on social media or what self-help book you read or, what your friends say. There's a million different answers, and each sort of quote unquote recipe that you choose to try and fix your problems, there's going to be another peanut gallery that says, no, you're not doing it right. You should be doing the other thing. You should be making the other choice. There's no way to please our culture as a woman, as a mom in particular.
It occurs to me as you're saying this, I remember that new mom feeling very much. And a lot of your patients are new moms dealing with that very intense moment. You're doing it wrong and you're really not sure what you're doing. And it occurs to me as you're speaking that this pandemic has brought that to all of us. You're doing it wrong. If you're sending your kid to school and there's not a mask mandate, you're doing it wrong. If you're keeping them home, you're doing it wrong, right? Every decision you make, there's no certainty. You said something in the New York Times I want to quote because it blew my mind. I'm like, yep, this is where I'm at. In times of chaos, you wrote, the dogged search for certainty can itself lead to distress. It's seductive to believe that if you worry about something for long enough, you can affect the outcome, but this is a fallacy. And I thought, I really needed to read that today. The search for certainty is part of the problem.
Yes. And to be fair, that existed in motherhood and parenthood pre-pandemic. But I think you're absolutely right that the pandemic and just the utter systemic failures and guidance from the folks who did have the power to sort of make choices that could help everybody, that failure then puts the onus on individuals and families to make all these decisions. And it's moms usually that are the ones that are weighing all the data and trying to figure it out. And there are no right answers.
Right. And I think that we conditioned to some degree to feel like there's a bad mom door and a good mom door. And that you're either going through the bad mom door or the good mom door. And that, if you have a crisis and your spouse passes away, like you're kind of doomed to the bad mom door. And in this conversation yesterday, but I don't quite know what the other solution to that is. Like, how do we kind of get out of this feeling of there's constantly a scale and it's either tilting towards I'm a terrible parent or I'm a good parent. And when I look online, I'm like, oh no, I guess I'm a terrible parent because everyone else seems to be a good parent. Like, how do we stay out of that trap?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. And I guess a couple pillars to that or pieces to that. One is recognizing how much external stimulation you're taking in. Like, who are the people that you're following? What are the podcasts that you're listening to? What is the information that you're taking in? Are you taking in conversations like this, right? Where people are actually questioning sort of the values and questioning the conversation, or are you just sort of blindly consuming the influencers and whoever it is? Like
the perfect picture, the kind of like, yes. Oh, everyone's making me feel bad because it looks like they're making their Halloween costumes in August and getting ready right. for the holidays in June or whatever. Yeah.
Right. Which we all know that's not true. We all know that is just a highlight reel. But when you're surrounded by that constantly, it's so hard for your brain to remember to do that cognitive work of reminding yourself, this is not real. This momfluencer is just showing me a tiny snapshot of what she wants me to see, what she wants to sell me. Right. So that's part of it. The other thing I would say is like what I see in my practice and in my work is like the hardest thing for moms is to ask for help and to accept help and to really internalize the fact that nobody can do it alone. And it's okay to say, I can't do this and I need help, whether that is making an appointment with a therapist, whether that is texting your friend and saying, hey, can you organize a meal train for us this week? Because it's just not happening. Things are a mess. Or whether it's like going to your neighbor and asking if they can watch your kids for an hour, just that's so hard. And I think that gets back to this cultural notion of like, as women, we're supposed to be superhumans. We're supposed to have it all figured out. Everything's supposed to be perfect. We're supposed to know the answers.
And if we accept help, it nudges us somehow towards the bad mom door. I was out the other day, just at school pickup, and I've been having a tough month for different reasons. And somebody said, oh, we'd love to bring you a meal. Her husband's a chef. Like, it's not that hard for him to make a meal. It's not a huge ask, And I was like, no, it's fine. And 3 of my mom friends who were standing with me said, you do need a meal. Say yes, say yes. And it really struck me like, what is this instinct I have to be like, it would really help me if someone made me a meal, but I'm standing there going, no. Oh, God, I couldn't trouble you.
Right.
Because, of course, I have it all together.
Right. I still have 4 limbs. So, right.
Yeah. I'm not actually on fire. So why would I need you to make me a meal? Yeah.
Right. Because it feels like a failure on your part.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is from the other side, for your friend, if you could say yes, she would feel good. She wants to help you, right? It feels so much better from the other side too, to be able to give and help,
It makes so much sense. Okay, we're going to take a break, come back with more with Dr. Pooja Lakshmin. Hellions, it's time for some spring cleaning, and I don't just mean the coat closets. Doing your financial spring cleaning can actually be super easy when you let Monarch do your financial spring cleaning for you. One dashboard that gets your entire financial life organized. No more clutter, no more mess, no more logins scattered everywhere, just accounts, investments, property, and more, all in one place. Get your first year of Monarch for half off, just $50 with promo code FRESH. Monarch allows you to look not only at what you've already spent, but also to plan for the future. With Monarch, you can set savings goals, plan for big purchases, and notice spending trends before they become a problem. I can generate cash flow reports that show me what we spent this quarter, this month, what we're probably going to spend next month, and feel prepared, organized, and knowing how to plan for the future. No more surprises and a lot more clarity. Try Monarch. Use code FRESH at monarch.com to get your first year half off at just $50. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with code FRESH.
Amy, let me tell you about a magical place that is so exactly designed to be enclosed space, year-round fun for the whole family that I bet you already know what I'm going to say before I even say the name. Let's say it together on 3. 1, 2, 3. Great Wolf Lodge. You got it, Amy.
My kids loved Great Wolf Lodge when we went. You probably already know that it has a huge indoor water park with a wave pool, lazy river, a bunch of massive water slides. But then your pack can hit the other attractions because wait, there's more.
Great Wolf Lodge has adventure-packed attractions like Magi Quest, a live-action game kids can play throughout the lodge, plus the Northern Lights Arcade. Spent some quality time there, so your kid who loves the lazy river and your kid who loves fantasy games will both have a great time.
Great Wolf Lodge also offers great dining options and complimentary daily events like nightly dance parties, all under one roof. Unpack the car once and you're settled in to have fun. And with 22 lodges across the country, you're always a short drive away from adventure.
We've both had such great times at Great Wolf Lodge, so bring your pack together at a lodge near you. Learn more at greatwolf.com and strengthen the pack.
Okay, we're back with Dr. Pooja Lakshmin. I wanted to ask about perfectionism and where that fits into this, because it seems like is that what's keeping us from saying yes to the chef husband making us a meal? It's a pretty good deal.
We're not asking for a friend, as it turns out.
Yeah, I think so. Perfectionism is something that I definitely see in my practice all the time. And I think that it fits in this picture of sort of like control and wanting to portray a certain image, and this really harsh inner critic that for moms in particular, I think is really telling everybody, like, you need to do it yourself. It needs to look a certain way. It only counts as a win if you've done it in this certain way.
Right.
And I think that especially for new parents, perfectionism is such a compelling measuring stick to use when you're in the chaos of trying to figure out how do I take care of this infant. If you're a first-time parent and you're kind of like used to having some type of like manual and recipe book, and you want to know the thing that makes you feel better about yourself is knowing that you're doing it right, of course, you're going to want to put that internal ruler and measuring stick on this new role, this huge new role of being a mom. And what better way than to use perfectionism? Because for so many of my patients, perfectionism got you really far in life, you know, got you through college, got you through undergrad, maybe got you through grad school or the workplace. And it worked, you know, but you didn't really see the cost until you became a parent.
That makes a lot of sense to me.
Or the costs were not too bad. You know, you could kind of push through.
It was workable. Right. I also think another thing that the pandemic has introduced, and this is the same with new parents, is, well, I don't have it that bad. You know, we have friends who've lost their homes. We just had a huge flood where I live. There's people with all their earthly possessions out on the lawn. Like, and then I feel like, well, I'm kind of having a bit of a hard time, but I mean, it's not like, you know, I'm sick. It's not like this. It's not like that. It often feels like in this very chaotic time that we're in the middle of, that somehow we don't deserve help, or we don't deserve to make room for our own struggles because other people are really in desperate straits.
100%.
And so what do you do with that? You know, is that just something we have to let go of for ourselves?
Yeah, I think that that's a really good point. And that's something that I see with my patients all the time. And
I'm feeling it. I'm like, I know I'm struggling, but come on, I'm not really struggling like these people are struggling.
Right. Not enough to get the meal from the chef.
Not enough to get the meal from the chef who happens to be my next door neighbor.
It's the feeling and then the feeling about the feeling, right? It's like, oh, I'm overwhelmed, but I shouldn't feel overwhelmed. I should feel grateful. At least I don't have my belongings out in the lawn. And it's the feeling about the feeling that's keeping you from taking action. Yeah.
And I think the answer, or one of the answers, right? Because there's never one right answer, but one reframe of it is to actually go back to that binary that you put out earlier around, am I a good parent or a bad parent? Instead of saying, am I winning or losing? Am I suffering or am I okay? Instead, opening it up to give yourself the space to say, just sort of think about the perspective. Yes, there's all these ways in which we're fortunate and we're not out on the street and we have a home, etc. And I also feel kind of bad right now. And there's crap going on and it's hard, and both can be true.
Right. And my hard can be hard, even if someone else's hard might be harder. Like, yeah, I'm hearing that today. I'm hearing that.
Right. Like, it doesn't have to be a competition.
Yeah, it's not a competition.
Nobody's looking at that person, right? Nobody's saying like, oh, I can't believe she took a meal when there's a flood 2 towns over, right?
I mean, the only person who's doing that, Amy, is me to myself. So there is one person doing it. It's me. I'm lying in bed like, I can't believe she took a meal. Oh, I hope she doesn't enjoy that steak from the chef. Oh.
And I think part of that too is sort of like, there's a fear that if you do it once, are you going to just sort of melt into this puddle of gluttony? Like, is it just, you know, if you have this one night of relief, what does that mean? Does that mean that you're not going to be able to pull it back together the rest of the week? And so it's sort of like, we really have to build this muscle of accepting help. It's like you have to learn the practice of what does it mean to incorporate bits of help into your life and trust that you can handle it.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. I'm taking the steak, people. I've made the decision. I'm texting right after we get off this, and I'm going to be like, bring me that steak.
So something else that's completely problematic for most women is self-care, right? Is making the time, as you say, like the least useful thing in the world to say to an overwhelmed new mother is that they should make more time for themselves, right? Like, yeah, right. I should fly to the moon. How do you frame self-care for the women you work with in a way that's useful instead of another thing to feel bad that they're not doing?
Yeah. So this is something that I've been, thinking about probably for like the past decade after, going through training to become a physician and being burnt out in medical school and residency and sort of constantly being told, like do some yoga, learn how to meditate, which, I've done at different points and gotten really deep into at different points, but I always fell off the wagon, essentially. And the only thing that really worked for me was learning how to set boundaries and how to say no and how to make clear choices in my life and be okay with those choices. And so a couple years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, when I started noticing that I was seeing more and more of this in my practice in terms of women who were coming in burnt out and disillusioned and depressed, and then felt ashamed because they weren't doing self-care, I started thinking kind of more deeply about, well, then what is real self-care? If all of this stuff that we're being sort of sold off the shelf, the apps and the diets and the juice cleanses and the yoga retreats and all these different things, if they're not doing it because nobody has time, and even when you do those things, there is sort of only a temporary fix.
Mm-hmm. Right. You're right back to real life. I got a massage 2 weeks ago, and by the time I got home, I was like, all right, that's undone. By the time I opened my car door and someone's standing there being like, there's no milk, and he hit me. I'm like, oh, okay, that was a waste of $100.
Right. And the other thing is too, is like, I love getting massages. I love going, you're right. It's like, those are great, but you need to know what it is. Like, you need to know why you're doing it. Yeah.
Right. It has a role, but it's not the role we try to give it.
So right now I'm writing this book and I'm thinking about it a lot. And the kind of the frame for the book is that real self-care is not a noun. It's a verb. Real self-care is all of the internal work that you do to get yourself to the massage or get yourself to the yoga class, because one person's yoga class can be completely performative. They could be taking selfies and posting on Instagram and just doing it for kind of the dopamine hit. And another person's yoga class actually can be deeply nourishing. So it's less about the thing that you do, and it's more about all of the internal work that you do to, give yourself compassion, to set boundaries, to have hard conversations, to deal with the guilt that gets you to whatever that activity is. And it can't be something that is sort of like prescribed by an outside source. It really has to come from you.
And it strikes me listening to you that this has really, I don't think, ever occurred to me before. We talk a lot about like the playroom, and people are always like, how do you organize the playroom? And we've said many times, the playroom starts at your front door, not at the bins in the playroom. Like, what stops so much stuff from coming in? Mm-hmm. That's the solution to organizing your playroom, not getting 20 more bins. And it seems like a metaphor for what you're saying. And it's a way of thinking about self-care that I haven't thought of it before. Like, the self-care isn't really getting the massage. It's stopping maybe the fourth trip to see family that's too overwhelming for you, or taking on, the role of class mom if you can't handle it this semester. Like, in the same way, you have to kind of stop some stuff at the door, because you're not going to solve it all with massages and yoga later on.
100%. And it's really about like getting clear on your values and your priorities. And that's hard, because that means like
really hard.
You can't do everything.
How do you advise the women in your practice? Because many of them, it's perinatal. So many women have teeny tiny babies at home, right? So they're not at the place yet where they can make time for that yoga class they love 3 days a week. They've got to start a lot smaller because they're so tied to their infant. How do you help them discern what self-care means?
Yeah. So in that early stage, we are talking about sleep. We're talking about sleep, and we're talking about feeding your baby and the decisions that you're making around sleep and feeding your baby. So a place where I see this kind of show up so much is around, and I know that this is a polarizing topic, but around breastfeeding and the choices that you make with breastfeeding. And I think it's so easy for women to kind of martyr themselves in service of exclusive breastfeeding, or, just whatever expectation that you had in your head of what it's going to look like, and underestimate the cost.
Yeah. 1 bottle a week will ruin your supply, right? Will ruin everything forever. And so you can't ever, sleep 4 hours in a row.
Right.
That it's not worth the cost of that, you're saying.
Right. because, from my frame as a psychiatrist, I'm really looking out for mom's mental health and mom's well-being, which is the most important thing actually for baby's well-being. So, just a story that I like to share is like a patient of mine who had a preemie. And so they were doing, triple feeds where she was nursing and then she was pumping. And then they did have to give formula and, because the baby was they were trying to gain weight, et cetera. And this was going on for weeks and weeks. And she was, getting like an hour of sleep here or there, maybe. Like it was a mess. And she had this moment where, she passed her daughter off to her husband who got to do the burping and the cuddling. And she saw the two of them in that like just really loving moment. And she felt incredibly jealous because she didn't get to have it with her daughter because her daughter was totally fighting breastfeeding. And that moment for us was like, we just kind of like dug into that. And we were like, that's not who I want to be as a mom. I don't want to feel resentful of my daughter. I don't want to be jealous of my husband. And that enabled us to then help her make choices around letting go of nursing. And I'm not saying that's a choice that everyone has to make, but it's just sort of like loosening up that framework for yourself.
And it's also a metaphor that extends into teendom and beyond that, Amy and I have both felt that feeling of like, oh, here comes good time Charlie, my husband, to have a good time with the kids while I go back to filling out the forms. And rather than sitting in that headspace, it's a great idea to try to ask yourself, like, how can I change this role so that I get more of the good times and less of the form filling out, rather than just kind of stay in the place of like, I do all the work and other people have all the fun with my kids. All right, let's take a break. And when we come back, we will talk a little bit about Gemma Woman.
Amy, when I'm having a good hair day, it usually makes my whole day better. And that's why on every day, I'm taking Nutrafol.
Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement brand, and it's the #1 hair growth supplement brand personally used by dermatologists. Nutrafol's hair growth supplements are peer-reviewed, NSF certified for sport, and clinically tested.
Nutrafol offers multiple formulas for men and women, tailored to different life stages and lifestyle factors, so you get support that's actually right for you. Adding Nutrafol to your daily routine is easy. Order online, no prescription needed, with automated deliveries and free shipping to keep you on track.
Let your hair be one less thing to worry about. See visibly thicker, stronger, faster-growing hair in 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol.
For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you visit Nutrafol.com and enter promo code LAUGHING.
That's Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code LAUGHING. My favorite skincare products actually feel more like self-care, like they're so nice to put on and they smell so good that I'm actually happy when I get to that part of my day. And I swear that is how I feel about Osea's anti-aging body balm.
Amy, you are usually the lotions and potions queen on this podcast, but I have to say, hard agree.
Osea's anti-aging body balm is a liquid silk body balm that combines the lasting hydration of a lotion with the firming power of a serum, leaving skin smoother and firmer.
This body balm is clinically tested and designed to deliver visible results you can see and feel.
So we've gotten to use this product for a couple of months now, and I swear I have really noticed firmer and smoother skin, like on the back of my hands. It's like getting a mini spa treatment from head to toe.
Get a spring-worthy glow with clean, clinically tested skincare from Osea. And right now, we have a special discount just for our listeners.
Get 10% off your first order site-wide with code FRESH at OseaMalibu.com.
That's 10% off your first order with code FRESH at OSEAMalibu.com.
Okay, we're back talking to Dr. Pooja Lakshmin. Pooja, tell us about Gemma.
Yes, absolutely. So Gemma is the first digital education platform specifically dedicated to women's mental health. And it kind of is born out of my Instagram page at Women's Mental Health Doc, and then also my writing for the Times and that I've been doing over the past couple of years. You could take a class to learn how to have a vaginal delivery or to learn how to breastfeed or to learn how to sleep train your kid. But there's nothing for moms. There's nothing for mental health. So I actually launched Gemma last year in the pandemic, which ended up being kind of the perfect timing because everything was online. And what I really see is like Gemma being this big tent for women's mental health, for good quality, evidence-based courses that you can take to learn how to deal with all the stuff that we've been talking about today. And one of the things that we've seen with Gemma in the Zoom classes is, you get the videos, you get the recordings, you also get slides that have all of the citations for the research. So women who take the class, they share all the stuff with their partners, and it's like this perfect frame to say to your partner, like, hey, I just took this class. I want you to watch this too, or look at these slides or read this article talking about sleep, postpartum and how important it is. So like, maybe we should have a conversation about what we're going to be doing for childcare. I think that really gives women and people who identify as women the frame to have these conversations and empower.
It's interesting because we've had a bunch of people say on our Facebook group or wherever this feedback of, I had my husband sit down and listen to that episode about this or that, because I think it really does help having kind of a neutral third party rather than you sitting a spouse down or a partner down and saying, I need you to this, that, and the other thing, entering into some sort of education from a third party, that the usefulness of having this external source of education takes the fraughtness out of it in your partnership.
And it also feels more solvable, I think. This is a thing that other people go through. It makes it feel less huge and also more solvable, I think, if it's a framework that other people are finding useful at the same time.
Totally. That's actually one of the things that we just did around a kind of user research from our customer base. And that was the thing that kept coming out, that women were saying, like, the fact that somebody took the time to make this course means that it's big enough of a problem that's not just our family, right? And that is really validating and relieves some of this guilt and this shame.
That's right. It's part of another, I'm in the bad mom door and no one is here. And then the minute you open that door, you're like, oh, everybody's in this door with me. Like, there is literally no one who's like, I'm over here in the great mom door. I don't know what y'all's problem is. So who should come to Gemma? Like, who should utilize this? I'm sure it's everyone, but like, what are people coming there to solve?
Yeah. So far, it really has been women who are pregnant and are really looking to prepare for knowing how to take care of themselves in that early parenthood journey. We have a good number of like second time moms. So moms who struggled with their after having their first, and we're like, I'm not going to do that again. Let me put in place some structures and some safeguards. And then we also have a good number of folks who have been in therapy before, or maybe are still in therapy and have struggled with like depression or anxiety or things like that, but actually have used the courses as sort of, because it's different. It's not therapy. We're providing kind of like all of the information and education. So it's almost like a great add-on to a therapy relationship that you can then take that knowledge and apply it to yourself in different ways. I really want Gemma to be sort of this big tent for all these different moments in your life, in your 20s, when you're making decisions about school and careers and relationships, in your 30s, when you're thinking about having a family, maybe you're struggling with infertility or trying to get pregnant. That's something that I'm going through myself right now in its own interesting journey. So, we could use a lot of support there. And then things like once your kids are older and like dealing with all of the transitions and difficult decisions that come with, taking care of your own parents, taking care of your children, balancing your career, right?
The sandwichers, right?
So we really have exciting plans and big dreams for Gemma. Our website is gemmawomen.com. I would love for folks to sort of follow us, and there will be more to come.
And remind us about your Instagram account, because that's where I found you. It's Women's Mental Health Doc. Is that right?
Exactly. At Women's Mental Health Doc, I focus a lot on, obviously, women's mental health. And I'm writing a book right now that will be coming out in 2023. So a while away. This whole book writing process is one that is
lengthy. Yeah.
Definitely a marathon. Yes. And the book it's with Penguin Random House, and it's called Empowered: Free Yourself from the Tyranny of Self-Care and Build True Well-Being. So it's really talking about a lot of what we discussed today in our conversation. Like, what is real self-care? These are external problems. So much of what I think about as a psychiatrist is like, what is the internal work that we do that can actually then change the systems, while at the same time not putting more burden on ourselves that we need to be the ones that are changing the system, trying to explore kind of providing tangible solutions for figuring out how do you have that conversation with yourself about letting yourself take the steak dinner from your neighbor.
I'm doing it.
Can we do a whole course just on that?
And
I'm going to do a live stream of me just sitting here eating steak and being like, see, I did it.
please have me back for that one.
Well, I feel like I needed to hear this conversation today. And I love the way you frame this question in some ways that I haven't really thought about before. We will put links to gemawoman.com. We will put links to your Instagram, all in our show notes so that you can follow up and learn more.
Thanks for talking to us.
Thanks so much for talking to us today.
Thank you. This was a blast.